welcome again to the Hero Podcast 64. My name is Ryan G, and of course, my co host, the real Pete Kirkwood. Pete, what's up?
What's up? What's up? Today, what's up is the emotion of a hero. I think emotions are something we don't discuss enough, especially as men. You know, it's almost seen like a weak topic to talk about emotion, but I think that the real misunderstanding there is the weakness about emotion is not being healthy, not understanding it, not demonstrating it in a way that says, healthy. I wanted to say strong, but I choose health because someone might say it's never strong to cry. Well, when my mother and my father have passed away and they've been there for my entire life and I'm standing there at their funeral, I think it's pretty unhealthy not to cry. Maybe you're going to cry at a different time and the public thing and a da-da-da-da-da, fine, that's your thing. But if you don't ever cry, to me, that seems weird, right? It's interesting how the whole concept of what is emotionally appropriate is it's very muddy water because it changes. What's emotionally appropriate for a child is different to an adult. For a man, is different to a woman. And many people will want to argue those facts, right? Like, especially when it comes to the difference between men and women. People say, men and women should be the same. Well, men and women should have the same rights and the same opportunities. But that doesn't mean that they should display the same emotions. They shouldn't emotionally behave in the same ways because your cat and your dog shouldn't emotionally behave in the same ways because they're not the same thing. Just like a child and an adult are not the same thing. And people get too caught up on what should be, not on what is. And what is emotional expression that comes from a upbringing. Everyone has a culture, everyone has a history, everyone has a backstory and a past. Sometimes it was the parents that had a massive impact, sometimes brothers and sisters, sometimes school or your community, religious, whatever. But how they thought about emotion is probably how you think about emotion, or similarly.
Right.
Whether you come from a stiff upper lip family or a we cry everything out family, you've got that predisposition to how you behave.
Right.
I think it sets people up for one of the most common things where they don't take that time to be themselves and their individual self, their own oneness, their own uniqueness, their I-ness, however you want to put it, for many things, for who they want to be, for what they want to do, for what they like, for what they don't like, for how they think about emotions, for how they think about morals, being a hero, all of these things. And the big thing is that you need to start getting some awareness and control around how you behave emotionally, how you respond emotionally to your environment, to the people around you, all of these things. Because I've been doing a little bit on this lately. I was in a situation the other day where I realized that I was right, but I was emotional. And because I was emotional, it was limiting my ability to communicate my rightness because I had the facts and I had the truth and I had everything on my side. Everything was exactly right. But there was so much emotional energy in me that my language became very aggressive, very short, very sharp. And it was missing the nuance, the context of the very large concepts that we needed to put across. Because this was all about psychology and politics and all sorts of very deep conversation. The thing that really blew me away was I saw how even my good emotions were tripping me up. I was enjoying the discussion. I was enjoying it because I knew I was right. I was loving smacking him back every time he came back with some stupid bullshit. Right? If you're going to turn up in my life and tell me who I am, like, come on, man. I'm going to win this argument. I know who I am and you don't. So don't try.
I see.
If we're going to have a discussion, we're going to have a discussion. But if you're going to tell me what you think, whether I like it or not, and pretend it's a discussion, don't even try. But I can feel this energy in me now, right? Like, yeah, let's go. And it's like a fun fight, but it doesn't change the fact that you're still fighting. So if I wanted to lay out the complete logical reason that this guy's absolutely wrong, I need a very calm emotional state. If I want to box with him and throw some one-liners his way and some sarcasm and some funny, witty comments, yeah, the emotion's perfect for it. He's not like a dick, but I don't have an audience or anyone I'm trying to impress. I'm literally just having a conversation with this guy, so what's the point?
I see.
Well, I don't want to go through this again. I want him to get it. So actually, I want that calm response. So right now, I don't want my emotions. How do I get rid of them? How do you get rid of emotions when you don't want them? Bang on. You don't, because you almost can't, because it doesn't, like, it's not like we went and sat in Emotions 101 where they taught you what all your emotions were and how to deal with them and how to process them and how to do it faster and how to do it more efficiently and like how to, you know, all this kind of stuff. Never happened. So I realized that the only thing I could do in that moment was make a decision about how I was going to respond. And the decision I chose was to wait until my emotions had passed. And then I thought to myself, oh, I know this game. Because if my emotions are passing, that means they can pass in half an hour. If I can change it in half an hour, I can do it in 15 minutes. If I can do it in 15 minutes, I can do it in 5. If I can do it in 5, do it in 1, do it in 1, do it in 30 seconds, do it in 1 second. I can get through my emotions in 1 second. So why can't I? Because I've done it before. And this is where I realized the value of a practice that a lot of people might know of. They might value it. They might think it's pretty cool. They might respect it, but they probably don't actually wholeheartedly participate in it from a place of wanting it every day. And that is the act. And that would be meditation.
So meditation would help us get better control of our emotional expression.
Correct. And the big thing about our emotional expression, or the big thing about meditation, is that there's so many million different kinds of ways of meditating. And it's very easy to tell yourself that you're doing a good job of meditating when you're not, because you need to do it properly. Right. If you go to the gym and you pick up a bunch of weights and you go, you put them on the racks and you go, yeah, man, look, I did heaps of physical exercise. I even got a little bit of a sweat going. I worked out. That's not doing anything. That's not actually getting you anywhere in a physical goals, anything. You're just diluting yourself. But meditation doesn't have a bunch of racks with a bunch of different sized weights, with a bunch of different exercises that you can write down and measure and track all of the things. It's just you versus your mind in the moment. And it's very easy to start getting
it's still like a lot of work.
Your ego, your mind, tricking you into thinking you're doing work or not when it comes to meditating. And the thing I found surprising was I just downloaded a meditation app. One popped up in my ads. I thought I'd give it a go and I'd give it a try. And I don't know if it's the best meditation app in the world or any stuff, but what it does is it provides a guided framework that gives me the ability to actually focus on my meditation and measure my meditation and check that I'm actually holding myself accountable with my meditation, because it had become so haphazard, right? Now, I realized I'd got to that point where I'd become good enough at meditation that I could sort of get away with not being that good at it.
Right.
And I think this happens to a lot of us in a lot of fields. When we study something, we become very proficient. And then as we try to go about, making it normal, we start letting bad habits slip in. And that realization I've had in the last couple of days about meditation and the changes, because I did my meditations, sorted my emotions, got that little bit back, more control that I had that I'd let slip.
Right.
And then when I went back to the discussion, it was like a knife through butter.
Because you no longer had that emotional baggage dragging you to a specific direction. I see.
Correct. Exactly. And even though it was fun and I thought it was good when I was emotional, when I got rid of the emotions, it was way better. And I think that when it comes to being a hero and that kind of stuff and these kind of things, emotions aren't well explained. They're not well understood. The language around is terrible for people to communicate about, right? I mean, the second we talk about feeling, we have to clarify whether we're talking about the physical sense of touch or the emotional feeling. It's the same word. It's useless. And we wonder, what is an emotionally healthy hero? The more I think about it, I see the best examples being Stoics and people who've have followed that ability to think, to think their way through a situation by choice, not by the virtue of their mind as the thinking. The fact that they've got that ability of control of their mind and their emotions and their body, so they can step up to do what's right at the right time, no matter how hard it is.
I see.
And you start to see what makes sense. If you are going to be the guy that is going to run in there and you are going to just punch the bully in the face to save the person they're bullying, you'd better have the physical ability to do the right thing at the right time. If you're going to be the guy who's going to walk into that business, look at their accounts, map it all out, and spot where the money's disappearing, you got to have the mental ability to be the right guy at the right time, to be the hero. And it comes to the same thing with when you're in there and go on.
So then becomes the challenge of being so in control of your emotions that you can be objective towards the higher purpose. Am I correct?
Yes, you're absolutely right, brother. Because when your sister pinches something, you're going to want to defend her, but she did wrong. And you've got to be able to get past, well, look, sis, you stole it. You're going to have to pay the fine or go to jail or whatever, right? Like, you did it. Even though everything in your nature says, well, but it's my sister. Surely she can be let off. We can make an exception. Maybe she just deserves a slap on the wrist instead, or a slap.
Right, but that's exactly the issue with nepotism.
Yeah, and that's our emotional attachment. So
I see.
It really comes down to this. Like, if I was to pick a quote that would sum up why emotional maturity, emotional control, emotional understanding and things is so important for a hero, would be this: the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
Because we feel like we're doing the right thing.
But they get frustrated because we're not seeing the right things happen.
We feel like it's
and thus creating
And it's
their own
very
hell.
easy to go in a direction that isn't heroic.
Yep. I see. I see. I see. Hmm. Well, my thoughts go a lot along the lines of the warrior monk ideology,
Hmm?
where you can't be an absolute unit of a man without having the mental and spiritual capacity to back it up, else you will just be a child in a monster body, a man who is not in control of himself.
You'll be the Hulk.
Well, you'll be an extremely dangerous man, but also towards himself and his loved ones. So, indeed, towards the more negative sides of the Hulk, where Hulk gets angry and Hulk basically levels a country.
Even
And
if they're his allies, because his emotions are out of control. Even though
exactly.
it isn't, yes, yeah, I'm following you. I'm following you.
And thus, the idea of the warrior monk comes into play. If you follow the story of Bruce Banner, is a very tragic story of a man attempting to get control of his anger to whatever
Mm.
means possible. You see these wise scientists become a wiser scientist by taking on meditation and more ancient practices to get control of his inner beast, which is arguably one of the biggest beasts to have, considering it's the Hulk.
Yeah, true.
And to be so calm, to be so of mind that no matter the situation, he can decide when it's an absolute time or an absolute moment for his other self to act. It's the whole paradox of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario, where Dr. Jekyll wants to be Mr. Hyde initially, but the consequences of Mr. Hyde is there's no impulse control.
Mhm.
Thus, Dr. Jekyll has to stand for the consequences that is Mr. Hyde. And it's in knowing that you have to stand for the consequences because you are the hero, is now that you get to choose what affects you. Is that you get to choose what you tolerate, what you get to choose what damages you. Is in that proactiveness in choice creation, is what I believe makes a novice hero differ from a more mature one. We're all in different stages of the hero process, and the more you get to know about the inner workings of, let's say, the warrior monk, the more you start to realize why the heroes of old took on meditation as a mandatory practice. You would see this
Big time.
in exactly in the hero link of the Zelda series, where you would have this time paradox where the old hero would meet the younger hero, and you would always, as you would as the player of the game, ask the NPCs who this old man is and what he's really about, and they will always talk about he wakes up early in the morning, he does his practices, and he meditates. He does a thousand among thousand burpees or whatever, and he meditates to calm down and to cool down. And then you start to realize an ultimate beast is tempered with ultimate control. And ultimate control is both the act of letting it go and flowing, as well as tempering a heated weapon, as you would do in blacksmithing, as far as I know. And
Yeah.
it's in that knowledge comes the consistency in which you practice it, meaning every layer that comes on top is towards something productive, which is your higher purpose. And in my
Hmm.
opinion, that would be to be of service to the world for a profit, and that profit is to be used to both feed you, your army, your family, and the community that you make part of. are a part
Mm-hmm.
of. And it's with that knowledge that you start to see what's worth your time, what is worth your effort, what is worth your attention, and of course, to that extent, what is worth your emotion, also known as energy in motion. So, looking back
Yes.
at your quote unquote discussion with the person who was acting like a quote unquote dick, sure, you could put some energy in it if you have the time, why not? Then again, if you didn't have the time, you could always say, can I make him more right by looking at his perspective? And afterwards, if that doesn't work, decide to cut him, following the sword principle of measuring twice, cutting once, also known as the universe rewards you is who is decisive, but before I decisive, let's measure first. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. And if I'm misunderstanding, let's make me right. Let's educate me. It's a moment of education. And that's how I approach it. We are all in this, let's say, spiritual journey of conquering whatever needs to be conquered, be it the demon king, be it a literal force of power, be it our own inner world that we're trying to get a more of a grasp of. Because as the chameleon, the world is often mental, the universe is often mental. So if you have more control of it, the more control we have in our life, because perception is often reality, associated with reality. And it's in that perception is how your emotions are often connected. So if I find out after a few, let's say, measures that he's still being a dick because he's a manipulative bastard, I can basically tell him to go quote unquote fuck himself because I don't have time for people that are just energy vampires, that are just attention seekers, attention whores. There's too much to do. There are too many
Absolutely.
important things to do in my hero's journey towards improving myself, my environment, and serving the world and the people that I love or care for or that pay me
Mhm.
for my services. And this relates back to the business in the sense of if there is a job to be done and the job has not been done yet, meaning, let's say, finishing the project, I am wasting my time with things that are not part of it. Of course, there's a social aspect, but that's has a lot to do with getting momentum towards the project and feeding my soul and the souls of my teammates because it's a social activity often when doing business with someone or doing a project with multiple people.
Yes.
But it's in you as both a hero as well as a leader and a self leader, which is what a hero should be as well. Know
Hmm.
thyself. Is in knowing what you're good in and performing towards. That is what is productive, and what is productive is usually what is urgent and important. Usually, a combination or one of the two is where
Yeah.
you not only get the money but are highly appreciated within the company and within your network. And what is
Hmm.
absolutely fundamental is that you have control over what is true to you, meaning the first response is often related to your emotion. I think you wanted to say something, Pete.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting because you briefly touched on it there. It's like, emotion is it's like a two-edged sword. There's a lot of power in it. It's energy in motion. So if you're going to be happy, that's probably going to be a very powerful driver for a lot of
Right.
things, and it's going to be good. But what we fail to recognize is that when that happiness transcends and becomes ecstatic, well, that's like you're on a timer, right? Because if you're ecstatic for 24 hours a day, you're going to do damage because
Well,
people are going to look at
also
you
to
and go,
myself.
well, to yourself, but people are going to look at you and they're going to go, something's fucking wrong with you, mate. You can't be ecstatic 24 hours a day. And that's where it shows you, right? Like people think, oh, but I always just want to be happy and I always want to be good and I always want good. And they want, they're so focused on positive emotion. But the real fact is once you get control of your emotion, it doesn't matter if it's positive, it doesn't matter if it's negative, it doesn't matter if it's weak or strong.
Right.
It becomes about you surfing the wave of your emotion, not getting tossed around by it. And you can say, oh yeah, well, it does or doesn't matter. Well, the problem is though that you never get off. Like you're always dealing with the wave of emotion. So you're either surfing, which means you can still talk to people and you can still do things and the rest of it because you're surfing it, or you're getting smashed by it, which means whatever you're trying to do, you're too busy getting smashed by emotion to do it well.
Right.
In this case, the communication, clearly the problem was that I was struggling to communicate because of the level of emotion I had in me, regardless of whether it was positive or negative. And when you talk about making those decisions around, who you do or don't have in your life, blah, 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 one of the biggest things is understanding, because a lot of people don't have understanding in themselves. Or what's worse is that when they start to get an idea, someone else comes along and tells them something else that invalidates their self. Because the real reason this issue started with was he turned up and totally invalidated me. He turned up and said, you're fucking wrong. I turned up and said, no, I'm not. And it was a case of he doesn't actually understand what I'm doing, what I'm communicating, or what I'm trying to create, or anything I'm doing. So yeah, of course it looks like a mess to you, bro. You don't know what a half-built anything looks like because you've never built one. So to you, it's a mess.
Right.
And that comes with being emotionally healthy as a hero is so critical. Because, go on, you were going to say?
Well, I think in essence, it would almost be the hero self-care is extremely important because the meditation is part of it. No one wants a burnt out hero. And it's almost a...
Bang. Exactly.
And, it's... We can do all the good in the world, but if at the end of the week I'm completely dead, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you name it, then what is the point of doing this? I'm not supposed to serve the world and to that extent, my community, the businesses that hire me, to simply benefit them and completely destroy myself. That's missing the point. That's self-destructive. A self-destructive hero is very similar to the Hulk in the sense of he's destroying himself while helping others. And that will not only destroy your life, you'll be attracting the wrong kind of public. You'll be attracting the people that enhance that situation. And again, it's a two-way street. It's a sword that cuts two ways. The more of something you do, the more of that thing that tends to happen. So you need to be very aware of especially those negative emotions. I mean, I deal with a lot of, let's say, negative emotions in the sense of rage, frustration, self-pity. Now I'm aware of that, so I can catch it. And in my case, it's a lot of the times when I'm tired or indecisive or whatever, which is part of the negative traits of my character, and I realize that. But because I realize that, I now can take steps towards being productive in helping myself. If
exactly. And because this is where, like for a lot of people listening to this right now, they have emotions. We all have emotions. They understand emotions. But there's a slight factor that you and I have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into studying human social interactions and emotions behind them. And that makes us two very rare people. We are emotionally literate men.
Fair enough.
Now, this is what most men really struggle with, is being emotionally literate. Because, like you said, you have that understanding and how to work on it and the rest of it. Now, when you say I have trouble working with my rage, your issue of working with your rage might be that you have raging thoughts in your head when you're dealing with someone and you're like, I need to really change the way I'm doing that. Someone listening might have problems with actually punching people out. So what I just want to kind of like bring up here is that this is so important. This is so important that I want anyone listening who is feeling that like if you found yourself nodding your head during this podcast, relating to understanding how you go through emotions and things, and you're looking for more control and the rest of it. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to come in and just with a screwdriver and change you, but the guidance around getting on a path to improving these things will improve your whole life. And that's really what I want to offer, because I know that it almost sounds stupid to say when you go in and analyze someone's business and their accounts and everything, and you do it from a numbers, mathematics perspective, a data perspective, it sounds so unemotional, but you are doing it as an emotionally literate man.
As well.
So you're exactly. So you're doing it with respect to how emotionally these numbers come off to the clients, to the customers of the business, in the business, the CEO to the sales guy, all of these guys need to have an emotional relationship with those numbers. And we understand this. So I feel like we're almost out of time on this podcast to really go deep.
Which we're already at the half an hour mark. Yeah. So
there we go. So anyone who's looking for better understanding, don't hesitate to drop me a DM, drop Ryan a DM. You can book into my calendar or his. This topic is too big for one podcast. That's where I'm feeling, brother?
Way too big. We can talk this at least a few episodes on emotion alone. Like, but that's the crux of the position that we have. We can't give out too much information, else it defeats the purpose of a podcast. Now, what I would like to do is let's end this podcast by saying thank you for your time, Pete. I always love doing this. This has been the Hero Podcast 64. My name is Ryan G. This is owner of ADS and main consultant, the real Pete Kirkwood of course, his business, the hero maker, the king maker. I wish you a fantastic life, and may your life never be the same. Good morning.